Hey, welcome to Friday's class. We're getting close to the end of the semester. I'll write up something to what the last few days are going to be. Uh, in the history of teaching this online, this is the third time I've taught this class online. First time I've ever had to go through and redo. I did the previous lesson, did the video, screwed it up, had to start all the way over again. So it's the first time that's ever happened to me. Wanted to talk about a couple things. One, kind of a good news, bad news for me. Bad news is I hate the fact that you get to this point, you're not really watching some of the videos or looking at the videos because I gave a simple little assignment. And if you did it, you got 5 points on your next test, just a bonus already of 5 points. Just a very simple little deal. But I'm also happy because the principal past performance really rearing its head again, because principal past performance would have told me some of you are going to do it. A lot of you are not going to do it, and that's the case where we are now. So if you did it, you know what I'm talking about, and I appreciate you doing it. So again, we'll have assignment 4 posted sometime today, Friday. That'll be due early next week. Then assignment 5 will be posted next week, done, and then we have one more test, and then we're done out of here. So we appreciate all of you this semester. I wanted to show you a little bit about, we're going to talk today about some Pew Research, Pew, P-E-W, Pew Research. That's the leading sort of news or communications research company. And they always do a yearly deal. And so some of these we've got from last year, some from this year, about the state of media and who's watching news and how people are consuming news. But just to show you how the world can change, let's look back at this video from 1981.
Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Newman reports on one person already using the brand-new system.
17 stories up in his fashionable North Beach apartment, Richard Halloran is calling a local number that will connect him with a computer in Columbus, Ohio. Meanwhile, across town, in this less-than-fashionable cubbyhole of the San Francisco Examiner, these editors are programming today's copy of the paper into that same Ohio computer. When the telephone connection between these two terminals is made, the newest form of electronic journalism lights up Mr. Halloran's television with just about everything the Examiner prints in its regular edition. That is, with the exception of pictures, ads, and the comics. 8 newspapers around the country are currently in the computer network, and within the next few weeks, 3 others will join in.
This is an experiment. We're trying to figure out what it's going to mean to us as editors and reporters and what it means to the home user. And we're not in it to make money. We're probably not going to lose a lot, but we aren't going to make much either.
Both the Examiner and Chronicle began service within the last 2 weeks and printed full-page ads about it. Of the estimated 2,000 to 3,000 home computer owners in the Bay Area, the Chronicle reports over 500 have responded by sending back coupons. Even though the electronic newspaper isn't as spiffy looking as the ads imply, people using the system are excited about its potential.
With this system, we have the option not only of seeing the newspaper on the screen, but also optionally we can copy it. So anything we're interested in, we could go back in again and copy it onto paper and save it, which I think is the future of the type of interrogation an individual will give to the newspapers.
This is only the first step in newspapers by computer. Engineers now predict today will come when we get all our newspapers and magazines by home computer, but that's a few years off. So for the moment at least, this fellow isn't worried about being out of a job. Steve Newman, News Center 4.
Well, it takes over 2 hours to receive the entire text of the newspaper over the phone, and with an hourly use charge of $5, the new telepaper won't be much competition for the 20-cent street edition.
I mean, doesn't that blow your mind a little bit? I know that's a relatively long time ago, 36 years, but still, I love the fact that the guy there, computer owner, home computer owner, like that was such a crazy deal. It really goes to show you again what we've talked about throughout. I mean, you can't even think about where we're going to be in 36 years and 30, even whatever a generation would be. So anyway, just interesting things to look at. So let's talk about the Pew Research. If you go to Pew, P-E-W, and they're really, Pew has been really awesome as far as providing yearly research for people to know who's reading and who's watching what. So let's go first and talk about newspaper. According to Pew, the estimated daily total U.S. newspaper circulation, print and digital combined, in 2017 was 31 million for weekday and 34 million for Sunday. And that's down 11% and 10% from the previous year, which is pretty high. Declines were highest in obviously in print circulation. Weekday print circulation decreased 11, Sunday 10. Again, that's a big drop. And when you look at this chart, and this is the actual data from the chart, but let's look at it from a pie chart. Look, that circulation has dropped, especially when you look at it compared to maybe the 60s and 70s, 1960s and 70s, the height. So when we saw that video from 1981, newspaper was really kind of at a heyday. 20 cents to buy one on the street. And since that has taken over, it has really changed the scope and face of the newspaper business. If you look at the actual data, there's a high here, and let me find it. And I may be wrong on this, but try to look at that. Throughout the 60s and 70s, it was in the high 60 millions, or the low to mid 60 millions rather. And then it dropped. You see a drop in 1993, 12 years after we saw that. So think of that. We saw that video in 1981 about the internet. In 1982 and 83 and 84, we saw actually still growth in newspaper circulation. But then you start to see it being chipped away in 84. And then in the 90s, it drops into the 50 millions in the circulation. And then in 2008, we see another drop where it goes into the 40 millions, 48 million in 2008. Then in 2015, it drops into the 30 millions, high 30s, 37 million per weekday, 40 million for a weekend. And now it's really dropped. Since 15, we've seen a really big drop from 15 to 17, closing in now in the 20 million numbers. So less and less newspapers being printed and distributed. The digital circulation, as you see here, is a little harder to gauge because obviously they saw it in 1981. We're going to have to go to a digital version of our newspaper. And so in the last 4 years, as you look at it, when really newspaper websites have started to take off, the average monthly unique viewers, visitors, 8 million in 2014 and 11.5 million here in 2017. Actually dropped a little from 2016. Be interested to see the 2018 numbers because I think we'll see that go up a little bit. Then this is for the top 50 daily newspapers offering this up. But this is what I thought was interesting. While there's not a lot of difference in the amount of time or amount of people visiting, it's stayed about the same. They're not there very long. 2 hours, 2 minutes, 2.44 minutes. I guess that's close to 3 minutes. Not a very long time to read and get a lot of the newspaper. So remember that. While people are visiting newspaper websites, they're not staying there very long. And that's a number that can affect advertising as you look at that. If the advertisers are going, they're not going to be here. They're only going to be there 3 minutes. They're going to read your stories and see my ad. It's something that newspapers have to deal with. And then you look at the economics of it. The total newspaper industry advertising revenue for 2017 was $16.5 billion. And this is a decrease from 10% from 2016. You think, 10%, that's not bad. But when you're thinking about the billions, we're talking about billions of dollars. And so total estimated circulation revenue was $11 billion, which really didn't change that much. Actually up 3% from 2016. So what you're seeing is newspapers charging more for the newspapers, and then there's a circulation. They're getting circulation revenue from their digital side. So their circulation revenue is actually increasing, and that would be a great true-false question. For newspapers, circulation revenue actually increased. Circulation revenue actually increased from 60 to 17, and it has. But if you look at the total advertising and circulation revenue total, if you look at the dollars here, the advertising revenue is dropping. It was 45 million in 2007, 10 million in circulation. Advertising revenue at that point, 49 million in 2007, 45 million, 49 million in 2005. It's now dropped to 25 million here in 2012. whereas you see circulation dollars and staying about the same. Then you go to the last 4 or 5 years, you see that the advertising revenue, and I've said million, it's billion, advertising revenue dropped to $16 billion in 2017, but circulation revenue is at its highest since 2003. So they're making up some of the dollars, but newspapers have to find a way to make up those lost advertising dollars. That kind of money just doesn't come out of nowhere. You're talking about as an industry, they have lost in the last 5 years $6 billion or $9 billion. Those are hard numbers to make up. If you look at the percentage of newspaper advertising revenue coming from digital, at one point, let's look at the actual data. This goes back to 2011. In 2011, 17% of newspaper advertising revenue came from their digital advertising. Now, if you look at last year, 31%. So clearly it's becoming more and more of the buy and more what people are looking at overall. And then if we look at jobs, employment in newspaper newsrooms, in 2004, there were 71.6 thousand employees in the newspaper sector, now down to 39. So it's dropped quite a bit. It's dropped 15% from 2014 and 45% from 2004. And how about this? Median wages for editors in 2017 was about $49,000. Reporters, the number was about $34,000. So not great dollars. So when we look at newspapers, I think we want to take away this, especially when we're talking about a test. The circulation revenue is not necessarily being hurt right now, but circulation is down. Less people reading the daily newspaper, less people reading the Sunday newspaper. They're paying more for it, and they're also paying for the online version of it, but not spending a lot of time online as well. Overall, newspaper, a business in trouble. Now let's look at, let's go to digital news. In some of this, you want to look at the audience. And when we talk about a legacy news organization, that's a traditional print or broadcast station. New York Times, legacy. CBS, legacy. Other things that we're talking about, they're when you look at some of the other websites, Huffington Post, for example, that's kind of a new media look. And so let's look at audience reach and engagement on digital native news outlets. And it's growing. It's actually fallen a little bit since 2016 to 2017, but 2014 it was at 18.9 million. Now it's 21.7 million. So people going to the websites to look at that. There's some mobile apps. People are looking at the mobile apps. Numbers staying about the same from 2016 to 2018. And then how about this? You see audiences trying to do some different outreach for what's called digital native news outlets. So you see the difference between the percentage. Again, look at the data. Sometimes the charts are wrong. Sometimes they're doing or harder to read. In 2017, 97% of the digital outlets had a newsletter. In 2018, that fell to 83%. 92% used Apple News, 86% in 2018. 75% had podcasts, down to 71% in 2018. 61% allowed comments in 2017. 2018, that's up a little bit on comments. So, but the thing is that they're discovering, the legacy media is discovering it also. And here's the takeaway from this. They're discovering social media is the way to get the news out. So 100% of the newspapers had a Facebook account. 100% had a Twitter account, including their reporters having Twitter percent. 94% have a YouTube channel. 89% have an Instagram channel. The only number that's not good is Snapchat. So 1 in 10, a little bit more, 14% have a channel on Snapchat. That would be a good test question for us. Of the following social media, which does not, our newspaper is not taking advantage of, or legacy media not taking advantage of? And the answer would be Snapchat. So that's it for those numbers. Let's look a little bit at the economics. Digital and non-digital advertising revenue. And then you look at the overall. We're looking at the overall business, and this would be across the board. In 2017, non-digital advertising, 116 billion, and that's print. That's across the board. While digital advertising, and you see that's where the dollars are going. You wonder where like the dollar. We saw a big drop in billions of dollars in newspaper. We'd see big drops in other industries as well. 90% in digital advertising, up from 31 billion in 90 billion in 2017, up from 31 billion in 2011. So mobile, and here's the number you want to think about. Mobile advertising's revenues rapid growth continued in 2017, going from 47 billion in 2016 to 61 billion in 2017. And also desktop advertising revenue went up as well. What you want to look at is this, that the dollars are not going away. The advertising dollars as a whole not going away. It's where they're placing them. And they're taking them away from legacy and traditional media and putting them in digital media. So, all right, I'm going to break up this lecture. We're going to save this one, and then we'll hit Pew Research Part 2 here in just a bit.